Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I am, as always, your host, Tiger Paul Craven. I got my boy Jordan Bowman in the back. We got a awesome show for you guys tonight. Lots to talk about. You know, we are a week into spring practice right now. 4, 5, 6 spring practices has happened. Got some live work yesterday. We heard from Dabo Sweeney yesterday. We've had several player interviews to kind of digest, articles coming out, all sorts of stuff to talk about when it comes about spring practice. We got injury updates, unfortunately. And we got some junior day stuff to talk about, all sorts of stuff to talk about tonight. But before we get into all of that and before we get into tonight's show, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Me and Jordan do the All In Show right here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel every Thursday, 7 p.m. So if you like what we do here, if you enjoy the show, go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. Hit that like button for us. It helps us out on these live videos. And also, if you're watching in the rewatch, we appreciate you guys so much. Bunch of people cannot be here live, and we completely understand that. Life happens. You guys have jobs and kids and all that kind of stuff. So the people that come back and watch it in the rewatch, thank you guys so much. We have started to add timestamps in the description of the video, and we've also started cutting up the video in a little bit more digestible pieces because not a lot of people want to watch 2+ hours of content if they're not in the live chat. So with all of that said, if you would like to, last but not least, if you would like to support the show, go ahead and hit that super chat feature for us. It really helps us out. It supports what me and Jordan do here on the channel. We get tons of comments each and every week on our live videos. We try to get to as many as we can, as you guys know, but we certainly cannot get to all of them, unfortunately. So if you want to ensure that your comment gets highlighted on the channel and gets read and responded to by myself and Jordan, hit that super chat feature. That'll be greatly appreciated. And with all of that said, without further ado, let's get the show started. Let me bring on my buddy, my co-host, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing awesome, man. It's been a pretty stressful week as far as my work life is concerned. But man, it was a fun week for Clemson athletics. Obviously, the weekend series against South Carolina was a lot of fun. You know, it's always good to beat those those people from the state capitol. So that was fun, and to win it in the way they did, especially that game. Well, technically it was game 2, but the first game that they played, of course, the Friday game was rained out. Winning in walk-off fashion in extra innings, that was fun, and then they closed it out in DKS the next day. So hopefully that third game gets made up on a later date. But it's always good to just know that you won the series. I'm really excited about the prospects for this baseball team. Basketball team continues to look really good. The Notre Dame loss was kind of a black eye, but I still feel really good about where this team is positioned heading into the ACC tournament. So really fun time in Clemson athletics. It's nice to have multiple teams with something to play for this time of year in the major sports. So feels good, man.
Yeah, man, it's always a great time to be a Clemson Tiger. It's certainly great to get wins against the Gamecocks in any sport, but baseball's looking good. Like you mentioned, basketball is looking good. Hopefully they can keep this momentum heading into the ACC tournament. Hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe we can make some news or some noise, in the NCAA tournament. We'll see, to be determined. But shout out to Will and D for the first super chat of the night. Appreciate you so much for your support.
Yeah, he says, I saw the end of the Clemson-South Carolina baseball game. That pitcher was such a clown. Yeah, the strutting your stuff, you're still, you're in extra innings. The game it's a tie ball game. I mean, he was pitching really well, but I'm not as someone who I like for baseball to be fun. Like, I don't want to be one of those people. Oh, you can't show emotion. You can't, because I feel like that some of that is starting to, they're trying to crack down on it. And some of it's, I've seen people get thrown out for some silly stuff, but I think that if you're going to be like that and dance around them and skip around the mound like he was doing and all that stuff, I mean, you got to be prepared for the possible consequences. It was pretty bad. And I remember it was funny because he was doing all of that, and then I don't even think it was him, but someone in the dugout shouted something right before Andrew Chufo's walk-off home run. I couldn't make out exactly but it was clear that it was some sort of heckling. But when the South Carolina players, they talked a lot all weekend. It was chirpy. I mean, you got to expect it from it's a rivalry series, and so that's kind of what it was. But if you're going to talk trash, you gotta back it up, and you got to be prepared for when it doesn't go your way. So that it was kind of a poetic ending, to that first game. So that was just a lot of fun. Wish we had gotten that game in Founders Park, but regardless, yeah. It felt like when you watched it on the television, like the only thing that kept it from feeling like a super regional game was the broadcast. The broadcast,
yeah,
was, man,
it was terrible, man. It was bad. It was bad.
Yeah,
it was like I don't know what's up with some of these broadcasts so far this season, but it's been hard to watch at times. But at least Clemson's playing good baseball, so it makes it a little bit more bearable to watch. But man, some of these broadcasts got to get it together.
Yeah. And from what I understand is since that game that first game was at Segra Park in Columbia, the home of the Columbia Fireflies, and so I think they were like short staffed or something like that. And they had some people there that didn't have a whole lot of experience doing baseball games, which kind of it was kind of a rough, and the audio wasn't great. They had the Clemson radio broadcast as the audio. I think Qualk did a good job considering the circumstances. But the audio feed was cutting out at times. It was pretty rough. But it was nice that the production was a lot better when they got back to Doug Kingsmore. So that was good. And Will also says spring camp is starting, exciting time for all fans. Chris Mitchell is him. If you guys don't know who that is, he is a transfer wide receiver from one of the Texas schools. If I remember correctly, that just transferred into Notre Dame. Really highly touted prospect. Transfer prospect. I thought that was a better get, to me, for Notre Dame than even Bo Collins. Oh, it was FIU. Okay, FIU. I don't know why I was thinking Texas. But yeah, really high caliber receiver transfer prospect. So Notre Dame is putting some weapons around Riley Leonard. That's going to be a fun offense to watch with Mike Denbrock calling plays again. It's been a while. He was successful his first go around at Notre Dame, and I think he's got a lot of talent to work with. So that's going to be Notre Dame's going to be a really interesting. I'm going to have my eye closely on them because they have a very, very interesting personnel groupings on offense, and I think that they have a potential to be a surprise team in 2024. So best of luck to the Irish. It's Clemson and Notre Dame have gone at it quite a few times over the past several years. Unfortunately, not on the schedule this time around, but I've always had a lot of respect for Notre Dame, and I think it's grown into kind of a friendly pseudo rivalry. So I'm gonna keep my eyes on them, and they're going at it with each other on the recruiting trail. They do it pretty frequently these days. So always interested in what Notre Dame has got going on. So thank you once again for the super chat, Will.
Yep.
We really appreciate it, and got to get you back on the show at some point. So we'll be in touch on that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Definitely. Maybe as we get a little bit closer to the season, closer to fall camp and things like that, we can do something with Will again. It's always good to have him on the show. Always fun to have him on the show. Thank you for your support, Will. Shout out to the comment section before we get started with tonight's topics and things of that nature. We got Tiggs in the house. He got the first comment in tonight. So shout out to you, Tiggs. Thanks for showing up early and getting in the comment section. John Sarian in here. Nobody in particular. Will is obviously in here, already hitting the super chat, supporting the channel. Appreciate that. David Wood is in here. Michael Foster. And I think that is everyone. Oh, Almighty Finn is in here. So those are the people that have gotten here so far, got into the comment section. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate you guys showing up and supporting the channel.
Absolutely. You ready to dive on in? It's a loaded show, man.
We got a loaded show. We're going to have to keep the pace kind of trucking along here. We got a lot to talk about, and we don't want to take up too much time. We like to keep a certain amount of time towards the end so that we can interact with the comment section. So, Jordan, I think it's time to go ahead and kick it off. So, here we go, man. So I think the first thing, Jordan, we're going to talk about tonight, the first segment that we'll do is injury update for the Clemson Tigers. We talked about it pretty in depth last week, gave a full injury list heading into spring practice last Thursday. And unfortunately, we already got a couple guys starting to get a little banged up. Some usual suspects, if you will. Unfortunately, a far too usual position group, if you will. Yeah. But we got a couple of injury updates to give the people tonight. So let's go ahead and dive into the injury update. First and foremost, Adam Randall. We talked about him, pretty at length last episode. Gave him some flowers. He's looking great. He's looking explosive. He's looking like he's got his confidence back. Looked like he's building chemistry with the quarterbacks, and his route running looks much better. And unfortunately, he's back in the infamous yellow jersey. So no contact for him. He strained his quad. Hopefully he'll work back as spring continues on. Hopefully he'll be back, in time to go for the full scrimmage and all that kind of stuff and continue to get work. Nothing too serious, nothing too crazy, but something that is going to limit him probably for the next week or so as spring practice continues. So unfortunate news there, but Dabo Swinney did say that he had a great 4 to 5 first practices before he kind of tweaked that quad and strained it. And then our next guy we're going to talk about is another usual suspect on the injury list, and that is our boy Troy Stellato. He got nicked up. One of the media members, I think, asked Dabo Swinney in his interview yesterday, saying that they saw him pull up kind of weird on a go route that he was running. And Dabo responded with, "It's Troy Stellato. He's always banged up." But we did get some news on Troy Stellato that I didn't necessarily know. Maybe you knew this, but he's only going to participate in spring practice up until spring break. When the team breaks for spring break, when they come back, Troy Stellato's not going to participate in spring practice anymore. He's going to go ahead and have a cleanup surgery, a scope on his shoulder to clean some stuff up, to get him ready so that he can participate in summer workouts and then into fall camp and into the season and so on and so forth. So those are kind of some of the kind of highlights of the injuries. What were your thoughts? Nothing too bad quite yet, but I hate that of course, it's the wide receivers. And, of course, it's Adam Randall and Troy Stellato already in the first week of spring practice.
Yeah, it's definitely just one of those. It's like, man, you can't make this up as far as those two in particular, as far as their injury luck. But the good thing is, Adam Randall, obviously the prognosis is pretty good. It was a strained quad. They just want to be cautionary with him. Don't want him to, aggravate it further. Keep his workouts relatively light, and obviously he can't, not going live will be good as he just kind of lets it heal So all things considered, it could be a lot worse. Guys are going to get banged up from time to time in spring practice, but it's just unfortunate that it's these two in particular. Yeah, and with Troy Stellato, the shoulder thing, it was something that I had noticed. It wasn't something I knew in particular, but I knew it was something he had been dealing with even towards the end of last year. So they want to just go ahead and get it taken care of, allow him to heal, and he'll be full of go for summer. Sucks that he won't get any more live work in spring practice, because I really think that Troy Stellato has a chance to be a big contributor for this offense. And I think you were starting to see that from everything that had been reported during practices this week. He made he's made a lot of big plays. And he's a guy that he's tough as nails. I think he's starting to get some of his speed back. You saw flashes of it, last year, and you saw the ability. So it's just about him staying on the field. And unfortunate for him that he doesn't get to get spring practice. But let's fingers crossed things can be worse. I'm a knock on wood real quick.
Yeah.
Because man, this team, this wide receiver room in general, and their injury luck. I mean, you already have Tyler Brown out as well, although he is expected to be back after spring break, I believe. So that'll be good. It'll be good to get finally get him back in the room with Cole Turner and Antonio Williams and just the rest of this wide receiver room, because I've been on record. I really think this wide receiver room has a chance to be really good. I don't think there's a lack of capable bodies in this room, and I felt like they played better last year than maybe the production would have indicated. So it's really just about these guys staying on the field, man. But that's the big if, isn't it? So we gotta see it.
That's kind of been the common theme for this wide receiver room. Unfortunately, for a few years now, it's we've had some talent there. There's been some guys that could really play and contribute for us and be difference makers, and we just haven't had the injury luck, right? We haven't been able to keep a lot of them on the field. We struggled with injuries last year. Cole Turner, Antonio Williams out for, in Cole Turner's case, the entire season, Antonio Williams' case, most of the season. So that's just one of the things that this team has struggled with. These seem to be minor. Obviously, the Troy Stellato thing was something that the coaching staff has been anticipating for some time. They wanted him to get half of the spring practice work before they, kind of shut him down, got him into surgery, got him cleaned up, and then ready for the summer and fall workouts and all that kind of stuff. So I like how they strategically placed that. He's never had a spring while he's been at Clemson because of all his injury history and things like that. So I do like that he is going to get at least, this past week that he's got another week. And then they'll go into spring break and all that kind of stuff. But at least he's getting some work. He's building some chemistry. And he's carving out a nice little role. If he can stay healthy, Troy Stellato, I mean, we saw what he could do on the field last year. So if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a big contributor for this team. Same thing with Adam Randall. Nothing serious for him. I'm sure he'll work back and be just fine. He'll probably be a full go after, I would assume, after spring break. And they come back after that short break. So, nothing too bad on the injury front. I think we've escaped catastrophe so far, but again, like you say, knock on wood, hopefully we continue to have the injury luck. Hopefully we don't continue to get nicked up specifically at this wide receiver position. We really do need these dudes to have a full spring and really get dialed in with the quarterbacks and start getting that chemistry and things like that. So, here's to hoping that continues and we can keep moving forward with that. So let's go ahead and transition to our next topic, Jordan, and that's going to be just kind of, we're a week into spring practice at this point, right? So let's go ahead and give a kind of an encompassing update, if you will, of what has been going on this past week. We've heard from Dabo Sweeney yesterday. We've had a lot of player interviews, some O-line coming out talking about Matt Luke. We've heard from Cade Klubnik. We've heard from Chris Vizina. We've heard from all sorts of guys, Peter Woods, about his transition to defensive end. We got a lot to talk about here in a short time to talk about it. And I want to kind of cut it up into kind of little position groups, right? We'll cover each position group real briefly and then kind of, quickly move through it. So wide receiver group, we'll keep that common theme since we've been talking about them on an injury standpoint. Dabo Sweeney talked about how this wide receiver room just looks the part. When you look at these guys lined up on the sideline in their uniforms with their helmets on, they look the part. They look like a legit wide receiving core that could go out there and really get the job done. We've already talked about what Adam Randall has come into spring practice and already started doing. Brian Wesco, we heard about him. He's as advertised, explosive, quick out of the breaks, all that sort of stuff. So, but then, some people that I think Clemson fans kind of not forget about, but we don't, because they spent so much of last season hurt and not on the field, and other people had to come in and pick up the slack. Cole Turner and Antonio Williams. Dabo talked about them and about how the offense just looks different when those two guys are back on, because those two guys are back on the field, and how excited they are and how motivated they have been since being back on the field, because football got taken away from them for a little bit. They had to sit on the sideline. They couldn't play. They were hurt. They had to rehab. Everybody knows the grind that an athlete has to go through when it comes to fighting back from injuries, whatever they may be. So what are your kind of thoughts on the wide receiver room as a whole, how we're looking so far a week into spring practice?
Yeah, man. Just to kind of reiterate what I said previously. Like, I think this group has all the, like, I think all the tools are in the toolbox. That's as far as I can go, because we thought we had a really good group last year, and I felt like we did have a really good group last year, but they couldn't stay on the field. And that's been a common theme for Clemson's wide receiver room for the past 3 seasons. So it's just one of those things where it's like, I mean, and obviously the injury news this week doesn't, inspire confidence necessarily. But I really think this group has a chance to be really, really good. But they have a chance. They have an opportunity. Dabo described them as looking the part. They're big, strong, fast. It's a diverse group of bodies, a diverse group of skill sets, guys that can make plays in a lot of different ways. And we just have to see it. And I would love to be a fly on the wall in some of those practices and see what's really going on. But when you see them, when you look at them, they do. I mean, they look really good. And so that's kind of the question is, is this finally the year where, they put it all together, and the guys that Clemson is expecting to rely on really take that next step, because there's a lot of options and a lot of guys that I've been high on and thought had a chance to be really, really good. So that's kind of that's kind of the difficult thing about talking about this group is we've seen we've seen flashes every once here or there, but we never have seen we haven't seen it all put together. And I think having a guy like Brian Wesco come in as a true freshman, early enrollee, and kind of bringing some more youthful energy and Dabo has described he's as advertised, and they're working him at one wide receiver spot right now, but he's come in, he's mature, he's taken to coaching, to leadership, and then has really kind of meshed in well with this group, and I think that's great. And you still have TJ Moore coming in the summer, so it really is a group that I think has a chance to have a really strong year. And I think that's the difficult thing is getting these guys keeping these guys healthy and getting them to put it all together, because the success of this offense can't, it can't be where we want it to be if these guys aren't healthy and they're not playing up to their potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see how they continue to progress. We'll see if we can stay healthy at the position. I think we got the dudes there to, become much more explosive than we have been the past couple seasons. So again, still very early, not getting out over our skis or anything like that. So, play it by ear, hope for the best. I think we got the guys in the room to really turn this thing around. But again, we'll see. Now let's talk about another position group that is going to be pivotal for this Clemson Tigers offense. This team as a whole, but specifically the offense, and that is the OL position. We got a battle right now going for who's going to be our starting center for the 2024-2025 season, right? Will it be Harris Sewell? Will it be Ryan Lithicum? Who's going to step up and really take the reins on that? Because center is one of those positions along the offensive line that is so important. He's the captain of the offensive line. They tend to make all the calls. They have most of the responsibility when it comes to calling out protections, helping the quarterback identify protections and things like that. There's so many things that fall on a center. So that's an important piece. We heard a couple offensive linemen come out and talk about Matt Luke this week, right? We had a couple OL have interviews, and that was Tristan Lay and Blake Miller. They came out, rave reviews of Matt Luke. They love the guy. They love the intensity that he brings. And I think it was Blake Miller that was talking about how just some of the stuff that he talks about he had never heard before, about watching safeties and watching the secondary and how they're moving pre-snap and things like that to identify what's going to happen post-snap for your pass protections and your run sets and all that kind of stuff like that. So I think there's obviously a difference in the coaching right now along the offensive line. It seems that, at least from the guys that we've heard from so far, they're really responding to how Matt Luke coaches. They're responding to kind of the way that he challenges them both mentally and physically. So what are your thoughts on the early returns of the offensive line a week into spring practice?
Yeah, it hasn't been a ton of insight into what is going on as far as the battles are concerned, position battles. But obviously, the big story, like you mentioned, was Matt Luke, and I think he brings a different style of coaching. I mean, I've seen him get really he's been reported to be a really animated guy, and he's really getting a lot in pushing this group to try and get the most out of them. And I think they're responding really well. I think one of the things that has kind of jumped out to me is is maybe not some of the start the guys we're expecting to start, but some of the younger guys, guys like Ian Reed, who in his going into his second year, he had a really difficult year last year, and not by any fault of his own. He spent a lot of time at home dealing with an immune disorder that he's had his entire life. So it's just been hard for him to, kind of stick around and stay on the field and be available. But he's a guy that Matt Luke has been really pushing, and he's responded really well. I'm really high on Ian Reed. He's coming out of Vandergrift, Texas. He looks like a grown man. Like he's very physically already there. He has some catching up to do because he missed so much time and he wasn't available for a lot of last year. So I thought, hearing that he was responding well was really, really good, because I think he has loads of potential. And then a couple of other guys, Dietrich Pennington and Zach Owens were guys that were mentioned. We've talked especially about Dietrich Pennington about and Dabo himself has talked about the commitment not necessarily matching the talent. That's the phrase that he liked to use, which basically means he's not fully dedicated to becoming a better player, and he hasn't he hasn't always shown that sort of dedication throughout his career, but he has all the potential in the world, and he's a guy that we've all been waiting. I think he did some of the things that he needed to as far as his body was concerned, and I think they're still working on that. But now it's about really paying attention and tuning the fine details, because he's a guy that needs to be. I think for this Clemson team to be at its best on the offensive line, he needs to be a factor. I'm not saying he has to start, but he needs to be playable, and he really hasn't up to this point. So now it's about him being a guy that can be a reliable depth piece on the interior, because that's invaluable, especially with some of the injury history this team has had. So him, I think, is a guy I'm really interested to see how his spring sort of develops. And then Zach Owens, another guy going into his second year, like Ian Reed, who in Zach Owens' case, kind of more similar to Dietrich Pennington, came in physically needing some work. Really, really massive dude, but he definitely needed to slim down a little bit and kind of do some things and get more, in shape. And so I think just those two guys in particular, Dietrich Pennington, Zach Owens, were mentioned a couple of times this week as far as guys that have been pushed to really kind of get right. And I think you're seeing this group in general respond to Matt Luke's coaching philosophy, his motivational tactics, all of that. So it's just another storyline to keep an eye on, because I think this group has a chance. Similar to the wide receiver room, there's a lot of options, a lot of guys with a lot of talent, guys that had the star rankings were any indication. It wasn't like Clemson took a bunch of Jags. Like they were dudes, so coveted by all sorts of top level programs. So we just got to see it, and continuing to develop that depth is going to be key, because when's the last time we said that Clemson's had a real depth on the offensive line? I can't remember.
We've been told it in the past, and saw it not come to fruition several times during the season. So I agree with you. We have the dudes there. It's, Dabo compared kind of the OL room and the wide receiver room. He kind of talked about them very similarly in the fact that they looked apart, right? The wide receivers and the OL both, they looked apart. I mean, this offensive line group is a big group of guys. I mean, they are massive individuals. But again, they have to get it done on the field, and that's where Clemson has lacked the past few seasons. And I'm not saying that is going to be fixed in one spring or one off season, or Matt Luke is going to turn this offensive line into the best offensive line in the country this season. I'm not saying that at all. But what I will say is I think we knocked it out of the park. Not we. I think Dabo knocked it out of the park when it comes to the O-line hire. I don't think we could have gotten a better coach. I think we're obviously seeing the early returns in recruiting. That's already very evident.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. Maybe a little hiccup there, but it's all good. We'll be all right. But we're starting to see it. I really like how these offensive linemen. Now we'll see how it works out on the field. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I like how these offensive linemen are talking about Matt Luke and the way that they seem to be responding to him. Now, to be determined what that looks like on the field. We'll see, but I believe we got the guy to get our offensive line to the next level. I think we got him in the building right now. So, how long that transition will take, that is yet to be seen, but I believe we have the guy in the building right now to get it done, that Clemson will in the future have an elite offensive line, and I couldn't be happier about that. I've wanted that for a very long time as a Clemson fan.
Absolutely, man. It's been a long time coming, and it's there's still work to be done, but the trajectory, yeah, you have to feel pretty good. Even just the recruiting returns alone, have to make you feel pretty good about the future of Clemson on the lines of scrimmage because it never made sense. Clemson had always emphasized being, with how much they emphasize being a D line factory and putting all and wanting to win at the line of scrimmage on defense. It's just that same commitment not being on the offensive side never made sense. Like why would you want to be such a great program for defensive linemen and not want to be the same on the other side of the ball? And
Right.
I'm not saying they didn't want to be really good on the offensive line, but I'm saying the recruiting strategy, the emphasis, the evaluation, it wasn't the same. We never recruited to be to have a group of guys that you felt were just going to straight up win up front.
No.
Clemson just hasn't had many lines like that. A lot of athletic bodies, a lot of guys that could play a lot of different positions and fit the scheme, but weren't high end, and most of them weren't high end NFL guys, and which is why the draft record is pretty abysmal at that position. What, only four?
Yeah.
Four drafted.
Mm-hmm.
And only and none in the first round.
Nope.
Just not very good. So maybe five or six. I don't remember the actual number. It hasn't been a lot, and none of them have been in the first round.
Right.
At least in Dabo's tenure. So I don't think we've had. I think Clemson hasn't had a first round offensive lineman since the 60s.
Yeah.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. I think Jackson Carman was the closest. So yeah, it's about time that Clemson, catches up with the other programs that it thinks it should be competing with: the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Ohio States, the programs that have put offensive linemen in the league, at a really high clip, and one that and been emphasized as line of scrimmage teams, especially Alabama and Georgia. They've made their living on that. So yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's looking up in the OL department, and let's talk about a group of guys that would greatly benefit from some improved OL play, and that would be the running back room. Dabo kind of detailed these running backs and what he has been seeing from all of these guys really this spring. He simply said Maffa is being Maffa, and if you're a Clemson fan and you watch Clemson football, you know exactly what that means. He's out there just doing Maffa things. He talked about how experienced Maffa is in pass protection and recognizing blitz pickup and being a little bit more patient and things like that. But we all know what we're getting with Maffa. That's not a guy that we need to worry about. That's not a guy that we need to hear what's happening in spring practice with Maffa. You know exactly what you're going to get with the guy. Really, what we want to talk about is who's coming up behind Maffa, who is going to run onto the field when he needs a breather, when he's got to go get a drink of water, when he, whatever the case may be, right? When we run a two-back set, who's going to be that first guy that runs out there to back him up? And a guy that me and you both thought would probably be a front runner to do it has yet to be able to participate in spring practice, and that's Jay Haynes, a guy that we really thought had a huge opportunity heading into spring to kind of solidify himself as the number 2 guy behind Phil Maffa. Unfortunately for him, he still has not been able to go. Hopefully he starts working his way back in. Maybe he'll be back, after spring break. Hopefully, we'll see. But Dabo talked about Keith Adams and, called him a sledgehammer, but also said that, don't sleep on his change of direction. Don't sleep on his ability to kind of juke you out of the way and kind of pick up yards that way as well. He's talked about, him obviously being a handful to tackle. We all know that Keith Adams he's a guy that's going to not run around you. He's going to run through you, and he's going to make you feel it. So talked about how well he's doing in spring. That's good to hear. Jarvis Green, he simply said he's a natural running back. He's just natural. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He's just a natural player of the running back position. Looks great. And then our boy David Ajamume, the new kid on the block, is looking good as well. Dabo said he's wide open on the field. You can obviously see his speed. He said he's not as polished. He's got some work to do there. But obviously he's physical. He's strong. And he's doing his thing out there as well. So what are your thoughts on the running back room and what we're hearing through the first week of spring practice?
Yeah, this is a group that we know what we're getting out of the starter. Don't know much about anybody else because we just at least in as far as live real game situations are concerned. And the little bit we've seen of Keith Adams we really liked. And so, you want to see, how is that going to shape out? You mentioned Jay Haynes being limited. That kind of sucks. You and I have talked, a lot about how high we are on him and kind of how he could be a nice change of pace guy. And I think he's probably the fastest in that room as far as, straight line speed is concerned. And I think if he could develop as a pass catching weapon, he could be a very versatile weapon in the offense and as a change of pace guy. So hopefully, I just hope to get him back, full go and really get a bigger picture. Then you mentioned David Ajamume, the true freshman, guy I really liked coming out of high school. Never, I thought he had a chance to be a factor as far as the running back 2, conversation is concerned. So we'll see how he continues to pick up because he looks the part, from an from an athleticism standpoint, size standpoint, he's pretty ready to go. It's really just about understanding and really fine tuning his craft a little bit. And obviously, you also mentioned Jarvis Green. Hometown hero guy that put up stupid numbers in high school. Limited as far as his athleticism is concerned, but he makes up for it. He's just a really, really fluid player, and he understands the position really, really well. So I'm really interested to see how all of this kind of shapes together because this group is it's not a lot of star-studded talent. Phil Maffa obviously is the headliner, and David Ajamume was a blue chip guy, but the rest of these guys are guys that were kind of underrated coming out of high school, and you want to see how the pecking order kind of shapes out because it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of separation. Behind Phil Maffa right now. So we'll see kind of how it plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like everybody's still vying for those reps and looks to be a crowded group, but a good thing, I think, at the same time, because all those dudes are really good in their own aspects. They all got strengths and weaknesses. I think they'll push each other, and the more they're pushing each other, the better off we're going to be as a team to have that needed depth at the running back position, because we got our RB1. We just need somebody to go out there, give them a breather from time to time, and then also be ready. God forbid injury happens. So hopefully we don't have to deal with that.
We have a super chat from Seeps Hater, $2. He says, "What's up? It's Brady." I'm assuming that's Brady Holmes. Good to see you, man. Brady he's been a long time listener, and he's also, I think he follows me on Twitter. So good to see you, Brady.
Yep.
And thank you for the $2. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for stopping by, supporting the show. We really do appreciate it. All right, Jordan, let's keep it moving right along. Still got tons to talk about. I want to hit on the tight end room real quick, and then we'll wrap up with quarterbacks, and we'll kind of be done with the spring practice update, I think. But the tight end room, obviously we know what we have in Jake Brenningstool. Dabo said he looks like a pro, building that chemistry with Cade. He's mature. He's focused. He's conducting himself like a veteran, as he should. This is kind of his last go at Clemson. We expect big things out of him this season if used properly. So we know what we have in Jake Brenningstool, but what do we have behind Jake Brenningstool, right? Just like Phil Moffitt, that's kind of a locked in. We know Jake Brenningstool is running out there first. We know what kind of physical freak he is and matchup nightmare he is for defenses. But behind him, we got a guy in Josh Sapp. Dabo said, compared him actually, funny enough, to, he said he's the Grady Jarrett of tight ends, which I thought was a really cool way to kind of describe him and the way his mentality and the way that he plays the game. Obviously, comparing him to Grady Jarrett is saying that he plays a lot bigger than he physically is. Grady Jarrett's been doing that. He did it his entire time at Clemson. You see what kind of longevity and career he's had in the NFL. He did not need that physical size. He did not need those measurables, and he's still out there balling to this day in the NFL and getting paid a lot of money to do it. So really good to hear that comparison for a guy like Josh Sapp. Just a hard-nosed guy, mentally tough. He's versatile. He's a guy that's going to, give effort, give you all that he's got, and maximize his opportunities and his physical abilities. And then behind him, you got Olsen Pat Henry. Dabo said he's kind of on his way. He's finding his way through things. He talked about Banks Pope, and then Bentaker obviously coming in the summertime and all that kind of stuff. So what are your thoughts on the tight end group? How do you think it shakes out behind Brenningstool this season? Or is it kind of too early to tell?
This is a group that, I'm really high on as far as the overall talent. I think this is one of the more talented groups, especially, when Christian Bentaker gets here. I think that's going to be a really, really strong group. And obviously, Jake Brenningstool, we've emphasized, countless times, during the season and, since the offseason has started, about how important he has to be, and he has to be a priority in this offense, because I think he opens up a lot of things offensively for Garrett Riley, for Cade. And this offense, just his ability as a receiver is really, really unique, and not like many guys we've had at Clemson. So him being a more focal point of the offense, I think should and probably will be an emphasis this offseason, because I think he just the talent is through the roof. And you saw last year when they did make it an effort to get him the ball, good things happened. So really excited about him. Think he's going to be one of the stars of this offense, has to be. And the guys behind him, you mentioned Olsen Pat Henry, guy was really high on coming out of high school. Very similar as far as really, really great athlete, and almost a receiver build.
You still there, Jordan?
I think he's a guy that's going to be he's going to have to. Did we lose me for a second? Probably.
You froze up a little bit there, but you're back now. So go ahead. Keep going.
Okay, good. Yeah, I can see it on the screen. Yeah, when the bars pop up and then all of a sudden the screen goes black, I'm like, oh, here we go. But I was talking about Olsen Pat Henry. I don't know if you caught that, but receiver build, really, really great athlete. Started to make plays towards the end of the last year, so I'm interested to see kind of how he comes back in. And then and of course Josh Sapp, who you mentioned. He's a guy that he seems to be the next in line, behind Jake Brenningstool, and really interested to see kind of how he develops going into his third season. So really excited for this group, and obviously you have the younger guys. Marcus Dixon is the same class as the same class as Olsen Pat Henry. Interested to see he's a guy that's more of a developmental guy. So we'll see kind of how he goes. Dabo mentioned Banks Pope. It's a really really solid group and a diverse group of bodies. So
Yeah.
we'll kind of see how the pecking order kind of shakes out behind Jake Brenning's, kind of like the running back room.
Yep. We know who the guy that's going to be running out there first is, and we'll see how it rolls after Brenning Sewell rolls out there. So last position group we'll talk about quickly, and then we'll move on. Oh, go ahead. We got a super chat.
Oh yeah, we just wanted to hit this super chat real quick from Zachariah Olenek. Thank you for the $2. He said, "A little late, guys. Missed last week too. Busy. Hey, no worries, man. Anytime you can, we're appreciative. Anytime you can show up, and obviously we understand. We're not holding a gun to you to be here,
Yeah.
and we really appreciate you supporting the show. So glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much for the super chat, and appreciate you showing up. Greatly appreciated. All right, turn the page to the quarterback room. Dun dun dun. Right, one of the most talked about things in all of football all the time is the quarterback position. Right, everything falls on the quarterback, whether it be good or bad, and this is no shortage of that. So obviously, we know how it went last season. Cade had his fair share of struggles in this offense. I think he had a pretty great interview this past week where he kind of, laid out some of the things that he needs to improve, some of the things that, he's doing to work on those things, and how comfortable that he's starting to feel in this offense, and how they're going to, attempt to use tempo and things like that to, give themselves a better shot to, to really stretch defenses and kind of stress the defenses that they're going against. And obviously behind him, our quarterback room, we've talked about it on this show. It's pretty slim pickings in the quarterback room, right? There's not a ton of depth there. Certainly no experience depth behind Cade.
Nope.
You got Chris Vezina. He was a redshirt freshman last year. He really didn't get much of any reps last season. I think he maybe got in a couple games to do a few things, but no real reps there. But early returns on him for the spring is he is looking good, and Dabo talked about his athleticism and his ability to kind of run, and his kind of willingness to just kind of rip it, just throw the ball up there and see what happens. Talks about his accuracy, him not being afraid, the moment not being too big for him. So to me, that sounds that he is ready to start taking on maybe that second string quarterback role, and maybe, pushing Cade a little bit, with having somebody there that is, taking those second team reps and just fearless out there, just doing it. Behind Chris Vezina is Trent Pierman. Obviously, he has not participated this spring up to this point. I guess he's been sick. Hasn't been doing well there. So Dabo said he should be back in short order and get onto the field and hopefully start working in as that number 3 guy. And after him, we got a break this in case of emergency guy in Paul Tyson. So that's the quarterback room. What's your thoughts heading into or through the first week of spring? What are your thoughts on what Dabo had to say about Chris Vezina? And what are your thoughts about the Cade interview and what he had to say?
Yeah. I just, we've talked about how we, frankly didn't feel great about the depth of this room. And,
Yep.
You would have liked to have gotten obviously getting a scholarship quarterback and your freshman class would have been great. And obviously that wasn't meant to be. And, it's hard to get a guy and, say the transfer portal to come and be a backup. So it's kind of it's an unfortunate situation. So the emphasis this spring was really, really trying to create some competition because it's just the lack of bodies. It's easy to get complacent, especially if you're a starter. And so I think the emphasis that they've tried to put this offseason as far as Cade and Chris Vizina really pushing each other. I think that's kind of the MO, and so you got to have that I don't expect Chris Vizina to like challenge Cade to be the starter or anything like that, but I definitely want to see that growth from Chris, and so far seems like he has, because he came in really raw and not really ready to go as a freshman. So, which is pretty normal for quarterbacks, even borderline 5 stars. So it's I'm glad to see the progression, at least on paper, that's been reported. So that's good, because this team can only benefit from the quarterbacks being competitive and pushing each other. So that was good to see, and we'll kind of continue to keep our eye on that, because obviously it's a big point of question for this season in this offense is, what does Cade look like, and how much has he improved from year 1 to year 2 as a starter. And I think Cade is going into it with the right attitude. Just based off of his interview, I feel like he's taken. I think he understands what needs to happen this offseason, and it's a big offseason for him personally, and just a big offseason for this program. And so I think he's going at it with the right attitude. And I've never felt like he wasn't. And I think some of the things that he struggled with last year are things that are coachable and fixable. Like I don't think he's a broken prospect or anything like that. I think I think you see the talent, and when he did great things, you were like, okay, well, yeah, there's the 5-star number 1, number 2 quarterback in his class, depending on where you looked, coming out of Texas. Like, oh, there he is. So getting more of that and less of the end of the Miami game, and things of that nature, and the fumbles and getting up to more of a more suitable size and play strength, and that's a very big deal as well, and something Dabo has talked about. Those are things that I think he's taken steps towards. So we'll see how it goes. I think, like I said, Cade's improvement is the number one thing for this team and for this offense. And it's having competition in the room with Chris is a very, very big deal. So we got to we'll continue to see how it plays out, and I can't wait to. They have their first scrimmage next Wednesday, so I'm really excited to hear kind of how how those returns kind of go, and what the what kind of the prognosis is, and what who stood out, and what do things look like. But so we'll continue to monitor that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the quarterback position, specifically Cade Klubnik, is going to be probably the single biggest factor in how explosive and how good this offense looks next season. We all know that. I think, as you said, he's got the right mentality going in. I think he's going to, progress and develop. How much he does, that's yet to be seen. But I never doubt Cade's work ethic or his I guess want to be better. I think he's not a guy that you would ever question that. Like he's trying. He's not out there being lazy or just resting on his 5-star rating coming in. He's just not that type of dude. So hopefully he can make the leap, the progression that he needs to, and we'll be here to cheer him on the way. So speaking of the scrimmages, they had kind of a half scrimmage yesterday. They're having a half scrimmage on Saturday, and then their very first full scrimmage, as you mentioned, is next Wednesday. So hopefully we'll have some good stuff to talk about coming out of that scrimmage for next week's show. And that'll be awesome to finally get the full live work and really see where this team is and kind of hear the interviews coming out of that. I'm really interested to hear how the first scrimmage goes. Who dominates the day? Is it offense? Is it defense? Is it a mix of two? Did they both get their shots? We'll see. We'll see what it looks like. Who emerges? Who's the big playmakers? Who's the guys that stepped up in clutch situations? That'll be all stuff that hopefully we can be able to talk about in next week's show. But I think that'll wrap it up for our spring preview, or our week one wrap up talk of spring practice. I think we went pretty in depth on the offensive side of the ball. Maybe we'll hit a little bit more defense next week. Give them some love. We really went deep diving into the offense, but all good stuff coming out of Clemson spring practice so far. Couple injuries, but nothing too crazy. Things that are manageable. One was obviously a pre-designated thing that was already going to happen anyway, and the other one was just Adam Randall straining his quad and that kind of stuff. But thank you guys so much for showing up tonight. Really do appreciate it. Hit that like button if you have not already. We're going to continue moving along with the show, but appreciate all of you guys being in here. Jordan, I think the next thing we'll transition to is the we'll go into recruiting a little bit, and that's the Jaylan Beckley decommit from the Tigers. Now, let's kind of set this up a little bit. This is not something that happens too terribly often in Clemson. Typically, when a player commits to the Tigers, they stay committed to Clemson. We do not typically see a whole bunch of decommits from Clemson, but we had one this past Friday. So last Friday, March 1st, I think it was, Jaylan Beckley came out and said that he was opening back up his commitment, or his recruitment, and decommitting from the Tigers. We can go back and forth on this, but I know Jason Priester talked a little bit about it on his show and said that actually Jaylan reached out to him prior to announcing that he was decommitting and letting him know that he was going to decommit and some of those reasons. And, from what I can gather, it was he got caught up in the emotions of a visit, right? Dabo Sweeney, we all know, can be quite the talker, and he can give some pretty epic speeches at times and get people fired up and get you ready to run through a brick wall. And I think that's what happened with Jaylan Beckley. And then he goes back home to Texas, and he's like, man, maybe South Carolina's far away, starts, rethinking his decision for whatever reason, and go ahead and decommit. So what are your thoughts on the Jaylan Beckley decommitment? Do you think he's done with Clemson, or do you think he's just, he's completely done with Clemson? I'm not going to go there, or he just wants to see some other options that's out there, and maybe he'll come back around and recommit to Clemson. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, tough to say this far out, but it's when a player decommits from Clemson, very very rarely do they are they much involved again.
Yep.
I think this is one of those things where I think Jaylan, he wanted to he felt like he made a hasty decision and wants to kind of take a step back, reevaluate his options, and kind of see from there. And then I don't think it's something, and I think for himself, he's got to figure out if Clemson is where he wants to be. And I don't know if I don't know if Clemson is going to do much legwork for him as far as he reaching out or anything like that. And it's like, if you want to be here, let us know. But we're going to continue to operate like we usually do and like that. So that's kind of where I am. Obviously he's a guy that projected. I mean, he's listed as an offensive tackle, played, but I think he projects more to play on the interior. I think I think really the good thing is, well, it's never a good thing, but one of the silver linings is that I feel really good about Clemson's offensive line board right now, and any spot that opens up for a guy that potentially that is maybe higher regarded by Clemson, is it's an opportunity. And so, like we've talked about, there is this offensive line board is really, really loaded, and I felt like even if Jaylan Beckley stayed committed, they would find a way to make room for the guys that wanted to come. But I think this is just this is an opportunity for Clemson. So we'll kind of see how it plays out. But best of luck to Jaylan. Really talented young player. I think he's going to land on his feet. He has a lot of really great offers. And if he feels like Clemson is where he wants to be, then that's great. If he doesn't, I think Clemson has there are a lot of other guys on the board, and we'll kind of see how that all shakes out. And in past cycles, maybe you would be a little bit more maybe a little bit more concerned about this. Oh man, okay, well, who are we going to get now, or and stuff like that. But
if this was last year, we would probably feel that way.
Yeah, just pretty much as soon as last year. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So, Jaylan's a great young kid, and I mean, he, when just listening to him, he definitely fits what the kind of guy that Clemson looks for. He's just you just listen to him speak, and that's a Clemson kid right there. But he felt like he made a hasty decision. Can totally understand. Rather you do it now than later, later down the road. And then we're like, okay, well, that kind of messed things up. So best of luck to him. And we'll see. We'll see where he ends up as he kind of evaluates. I know Auburn was heavily involved with him as well. He has a lot of other pretty strong offers. So, and his stock has been rising in the summer. In this off season. So we'll kind of see how that all plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. More to be seen there. Possibly, we'll see if he ultimately ends up a Clemson Tiger. If not, I think, as you mentioned, Clemson will be just fine. But again, you never like to see anyone decommit. But, it is what it is. It's still very early in the cycle. This isn't going to do any real damage to the Clemson recruiting class at all, I don't think. And it's just kind of one of those things where you move on to the next guys. You keep focusing on the guys that you're already recruiting and, hope that you land those guys. And, keeping the common theme with recruiting and all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about the junior day coming up this weekend. Kind of snuck up on me. I don't know about you, Jordan, but you've been full go on all this spring practice stuff and really excited about football on the field. And this kind of slipped out of my mind and until I realized that we were having a junior day this coming Saturday. So we got a big list of visitors coming March 9th, this Saturday. Right now, the Clemson recruiting class for the 2025 cycle currently sits at number 2. Does that mean a whole lot this early in the cycle? Absolutely not. But we're doing pretty good so far. So let's keep it moving. I'll go quickly through the list of guys that are confirmed to attend this weekend. And then we can kind of highlight a few that we want to talk about and go from there. So we got 4-star edge Bryce Davis out of Greensboro, North Carolina. 4-star edge Isaiah Gibson of Warner Robins, Georgia. 4-star defensive line Christian Garrett. 4-star athlete Micah Matthews. 3-star cornerback Tay Harris. 3-star cornerback Caleb Lanner. 3-star wide receiver Tyler Williams. And then some 2026 guys. 4-star cornerback Dorian 4-star offensive tackle Maxwell Riley, 4-star cornerback Samari Matthews, inside offensive lineman Leo Delaney, 4-star offensive tackle. I'm not even going to pretend to try to say his.
Oboko,
thank you, Akene Oboko. out of Durham. And then I love how you knew exactly who I was talking about. 4-star linebacker Thomas Davis, wide receiver Jordan. Hold on, sorry, I lost my place. My bad.
Who are you? Jordan Young, or
no, I lost my place. I don't know where I was. Running back, Jalen McGill, wide receiver Donovan Murph, OL Desmond Green. So just to name a few guys. Anybody you want to highlight for this particular visit, and just talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. So obviously the big defensive linemen, Christian Garrett, Bryce Davis, Isaiah Gibson, guys that Clemson has been heavily involved in. Guys that they're. This is going to be a very common theme. Georgia is also heavily involved with these guys. So
you don't say.
Clemson is going to be going at it a lot this this cycle with Georgia. All three guys that Clemson has really, really high on the board, and they have a chance to really get some movement on. Really excited to kind of see how the returns from that. There's still, I think that the other position group that I think is really going to be highlighted this Saturday is wide receiver, because I think that's kind of been the position so far that hasn't fully taken shape yet as far as the board, and who is really, really going to be, Clemson is going to really, really push for. So there are a couple of guys on this list. Micah Matthews, they like at receiver. Dalen Upshaw and Tyler Williams are guys that I think Clemson feels really, really are really, really high on, but guys that haven't been to campus as often. So we're kind of seeing how this group is starting to shape out. So that's kind of those are the two positions I'm really keeping my eye on. And the junior day it's kind of funny. It's called a junior day. But really, in reality, it's kind of like it's more of a sophomore day with how many 2026 kids are going to be there.
Way more 2026 guys than 2025 guys.
100%. 4-star edge Hezekiah Harris is going to be there. Number one edge in the 2026 cycle guy. Really, really explosive tape. I don't want to dig. I know it's hard for people to really care about the 2026 class right now, but I think he's a headliner on that day. Also, a late addition came out today. 2025 4-star safety Anquan Fegans will be there on Saturday. Out of Thompson High School in Alabama, obviously. If that high school sounds familiar, that is the very same high school that one Peter Woods attended. We have his dad in the live chat right now. Shout out to Jermaine Woods. And he mentions David Sanders is visiting on Sunday. There's a lot of guys visiting following that Saturday junior day. So we're going to get right into that as well. It's a very, very loaded next few days for Clemson as far as this recruiting cycle is going. Already mentioned David Sanders, 2026 4-star defensive lineman Bryce Perry White, and 2026 defensive lineman Deuce Geralds will be there on March the 11th, I believe. I'm sorry, March the 10th. And then March 11th, you have 2025 4-star Winston Watkins, obviously a cousin of former Clemson wide receiver Sammy Watkins. He was a former Colorado commit, wants to check out Clemson. He's got a loaded, visit schedule, so we'll kind of see how that shapes out. And then on March 12th, Josh Petty, the number 2 offensive tackle in the 2025 class, will be in Clemson. He'll be there on the 12th. And then on the 13th, you'll have 2026 4-star edge rusher Cam Brooks out of Thomasville, Georgia. So like I said, really, really loaded group coming in this weekend. And so you have a chance to get a lot of traction, not just for 2025, but that next class of 2026. So we'll really excited to kind of get the returns out of that. Already kind of to go back to David Sanders, because that's the guy that everybody wants to talk about. He'll be there on the 10th as part of his little official visit run this spring. Not official visit, unofficial visit run this spring. I feel really good about where Clemson stands right now. I think that's Clemson considers him basically the number one overall prospect on their board, and for good reason. Out of Providence Day High School in Charlotte, just really, really talented. And I think he has the frame and athletic ability to be a potential first round pick. Once he puts, especially once he gets in to college and puts on size, I think he has the frame to put on size and keep a lot of that athleticism, which is why he's so highly regarded. It's just across the board, no matter where you look. Feel good about where Clemson stands right now. I feel like it's a Clemson, Georgia, with Tennessee. Again, common theme with Clemson and Georgia. They're going at it a lot. Clemson, Georgia, as well as Tennessee. I feel like out of those, the top six that he released this week, I feel like those are the three schools that are in the best position right now. And I feel like Clemson may potentially be in the driver's seat. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And this visit weekend can go a long way. So we'll kind of see what the returns are from there.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Do you have any thoughts on any of the guys on this list?
We'll see where the weekend takes us. Right, lot of work to still do for this recruiting class. Glad that we're getting Sanders back on campus. I think it's a good thing that he's showing back up at Clemson. Obviously, he'll be there for the big recruiting weekend in the summer. So that'll be good as well. That official visit there. Think we're making some traction with him. Obviously, as you mentioned, he's the number one guy on the board. So I think we have a decent shot at him. Obviously, he's interested in Clemson, and so hopefully we can land him. A bunch of other guys coming on campus this weekend. I love the momentum that we've built so far early in this recruiting class. Hopefully we can keep it going through this weekend. Obviously, we got the big recruiting weekend at the end of May coming up, that big weekend. And then, we always hit a huge momentum wave typically after that recruiting weekend. So hopefully we can carry some momentum heading into that, get through spring practice, and then really ramp it up that weekend and see if we can get some big-time guys committed after that weekend. I think that'll be kind of the pivotal moment for this recruiting class.
Absolutely. John asks, haven't both Sanders and Petty locked in their official visits at Clemson? Yes, they have. Yes. They will be there on that May 31st, official visit weekend. Really, obviously, can't emphasize enough how big, that official visit weekend is every year nowadays with the recruiting calendar. But again, this junior day is really important as well because, even with the obviously you have the 2025 kids, but you have a really good opportunity to kind of plant the seeds in the 2026 class because there's a lot of talent coming in that class as well. And obviously getting David Sanders and Josh Petty in the coming week. Obviously, they're not going to be there on that March 9th date, but they're going to be there. They're going to be there. David Sanders is going to be there March 10th. And Josh Petty on the 12th. So that's a big deal and a big chance to kind of push the needle with those guys even still. And then I already mentioned the talent at defensive line and wide receiver coming in on that March 9th date. And I think it's especially wide receiver because that board is still kind of coalescing and coming together. You have a really good opportunity to set yourself up well. And maybe potentially lock in some guys for that May 31st official visit. So kind of see how it plays out. I saw John mention Tay Harris as well, listed as a safety in some sites, listed as a corner in others. Clemson likes him at corner. He mentioned that he acts like a tiger on X. Yeah, he's very much active on Twitter, and he's been really receptive and really positive about Clemson so far. Clemson I really like him, and I think Clemson's they're in good shape. Obviously, he was a former Georgia commit, so any guy that you can, well, not really steal from Georgia because he decommitted first, but a guy that was committed to Georgia, he's got to be pretty good. And that's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but I really like his tape as well. Really fluid athlete. It just kind of fits the mold of a Mike Reed type of corner, and I think he would be a really good addition to the class. So,
yeah. And as we said last week, if Mike Reed likes him, I love him. So
yeah, at this point, I mean, you just trust the eval.
Hey man, look, the way that he churns out DBs, man. Hey, if he wants them, let's get him.
Yeah,
that's just that's the kind of the credit and the cachet that he's built up, man. If he wants a dude, then obviously he sees something in him. He's going to develop him to be a really good cornerback because that's just what he does. So. Big recruiting weekend. We use these to kind of set up that big May 31st weekend where we tend to get quite a few commits during and after that weekend. So hopefully, like you say, this will continue to build the momentum. We'll get some guys locked in for that May 31st official visit weekend and really kind of get a huge jump on this recruiting class and get some big names, big guys in on that May 31st official visit weekend. So we'll see how it goes. Still a lot of time between now and then to get guys locked in for that and keep recruiting and all that stuff in the midst of spring practice and all the other stuff that the coaches got going on. So busy calendar, and just got to keep rolling on. But let's go ahead and transition into our next to last topic, I guess, for the night. Continuing to move right along. We're at an hour and 25 minutes already. If you guys haven't hit that like button, go ahead and hit that like button for us. Appreciate you guys showing up, showing your support, hanging out with us, talking some college football. We'll get to your comments at the end of the show as we do every single show. So stick around for us for about 15 more minutes, and then we'll turn the show over to you guys, and y'all can take us in any direction that you want to take us in. So Tigers at the NFL Combine. Okay, we had 6 Tigers, Jordan, that participated in the NFL Combine, and that is Will Shipley, obviously, Nate Wiggins. Shout out to Nate for just running out of the stadium with that explosive 40-yard time. Shout out to him. Rook, Tyler Davis, Xavier Thomas, and Jeremiah Trotter. So these guys performed, I think, pretty well in the NFL Combine. Did anybody drastically help or hurt their stock, in your opinion? What are some kind of the things that you're hearing post NFL Combine about our Tigers?
Yeah, I think there's. I don't think there were a ton that truly. I think there's one player in particular that really I think helped his draft stock, and I think that was Rook.
Rook, yeah.
I think he performed the best overall. I think Nate Wiggins had a chance to if he hadn't aggravated his hip after running that 40. But it definitely confirmed the speed that you see on tape for sure. Obviously, Will Shipley and Jeremiah Trotter, they did not run at the combine, and I don't think they did many of the drills either. And so they're kind of probably going to wait till pro day. So we'll kind of see how that goes. So I don't think they either helped or hurt their stock. I thought Tyler Davis performed really well, showed off his 40 time, it wasn't blazing fast, but it was pretty good. And he did really, really well in the strength drills. Him and Rook both were like tied for like second or third among defensive tackles and bench press. Tyler Davis is a guy, he's not very physically imposing, but his play strength, you see it on tape and you're like, okay, yeah, he plays a lot bigger than he is at times. And it kind of confirmed that with in the drills and especially the bench press. So I thought they did really, really well. And and I thought XT I thought he looked pretty fluid in the drills as well. Ran a good 40 time, even though I'm sorry, not the drills. He ran because obviously he got injured. But he injured himself, running the 40. It seems to be a common theme with these Tigers in this NFL combine for some reason. But thought he ran a decent 40 time, and I know he thought it was going to be better, but obviously the injury. So we'll see kind of how he works out in Pro Day. The prognosis seems to be good that he'll be able to work out at Pro Day, because I think he's a guy that drafts. I keep up with draft scouts a little bit, or in draft Twitter and kind of the NFL draft space and kind of all of that. And XT is a guy that I think a lot of scouts really, really like. You just, because you watch him on tape and you're like, good Lord, this man is twitched up. Like he's explosive. And it's like, and then you see it, and then you see, oh, he was a former number 1 overall recruit. And you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And obviously just the things he dealt with at Clemson obviously hindered his ability to be as productive as he maybe could have. So we'll see how it goes. I think, but like I said, I think Rook was the one that helped his draft stock the most for sure. I don't think any Tigers hurt their draft stock. So that was good.
And they still have the senior day at Clemson, right?
The pro day,
the pro day, excuse me, the pro day at Clemson to kind of showcase their skills and run if they want to do it there and do different drills that they want to do there, and there'll be plenty of NFL scouts there to watch them and get a feel for what they're doing. But I agree, Rook definitely, I think, rose his NFL stock maybe quite a bit. We'll see where he ends up going, but some people got him rising quite a bit due to his NFL combine performance. He absolutely went out there and killed it. He was great. He looked really good out there. And when you think about how little football he has played, it's kind of crazy to think about. But shout out to him. XT, hate that he got that he tweaked something there. Nate Wiggins did the same thing. Maybe Clemson players should just not run the 40 anymore.
I don't know what it is.
It's a hazard to every Clemson Tiger. We can't do it.
I don't get it, man. And what's crazy is with Nate, like he ran the fastest 40 time a Clemson Tiger, well, tied for the fastest 40 time a Clemson Tigers ever ran at the combine, tied with Jacoby Ford. And I, like Dabo said this week, I thought it would be faster. And so it makes you wonder. Makes you wonder what could have been if he had aggravated his hip during that run, because it might have been, Xavier Worthy ran a 4.21, broke the record.
4.21, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying Nate would have ran that fast, but I think he could have shaved a couple hundredths of a second. I
think so. Yeah.
Maybe he said he ran it. He was clocked at a 4.276 or in his pre-draft workouts. So I think he probably might have been able to reach closer to that 4.25, 4.26 type of time if he hadn't gotten hurt. And it's crazy to think about. It's that's like a 200th of a second, but that is a big difference.
It is with running. Yeah. That's a huge difference with running. Not easy to shave that kind of time or make those kind of adjustments. But I mean, the thing with Nate Wiggins for me is, it's great to see him go out there and run that 40. And I know scouts in the NFL combine and they love all that stuff. But I mean, all you got to do is turn on the tape when it comes to Nate Wiggins, dude. Like you see the speed on the field, like in pads with the helmet on, like him running down
elite speed,
multiple receivers. Absolute elite speed, refuses to give up, got better, the entire time he was at Clemson. He never stopped progressing, never stopped getting better. So, the speed is nice, and I'm sure, that's an eye-popping thing that, you could put on the paper, and, NFL scouts get real excited about that stuff. But, if you can't turn on the tape and realize that Nate Wiggins is one of the fastest dudes on the field, I don't think you really need to see him run a 40-yard dash to identify that dude's speed is different. But it's always good to see. I'm glad he went out there and ran what he did. Unfortunately, tweaked his groin or his hip flexor or whatever was going on with him there. But all those dudes will come to pro day at Clemson and show out, I'm sure. And hopefully they can help their draft stock and go have long, successful careers in the NFL. Man, those dudes definitely laid it on the line for the Tigers, and now we can cheer them on as they go to the NFL and hope that they can go get paid.
Absolutely, man. Clemson just continues to turn them out. Obviously the last few seasons have not been up to the standard that has been set, but hey, it's not because they didn't have talent, and you're seeing it. So just I'm really excited about the future, and I think that if Clemson's NFL draft pedigree is any indicator, they're going to continue to get guys because the resume speaks for itself. If you come to Clemson, you're going to have a really good shot at playing in the league. It's pretty great, as big as NIL and all of that has been in the recruiting landscape. Proven track record of production and development, ultimately that's the best thing you can sell. So just excited and happy for these guys, because I think they all deserve it, and all of them were really great players at Clemson. So we'll see where they end up, and I'm excited to see them obviously during the pro day as well.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to watch them. It's gonna be fun to watch them.
Absolutely.
I always love following all the Clemson Tigers in the NFL. I don't really have an NFL team per se that I root for, but I really do love watching the different Tigers play on Sunday and hope they do well. It's better that way for me because I'm not emotionally invested in any particular NFL team, so I could truly just root for all the Clemson players and hope that they do well.
I wish I was like you because I'm a long-suffering Titans fan, and these last several, having to watch my division rivals get the two best quarterbacks that I've ever played at Clemson, and having to play them 2 times a year and root against them, that has sucked. That has sucked tremendously.
That's no fun.
I'm glad Watson got up out of Houston, but I still got to deal with T-Law.
Yeah.
And beating them in the regular season finale to knock them out of the playoffs was one of the most bittersweet victories I think I've ever experienced as a Titans fan, because I was like, we had nothing to play for, because losing season, and Trevor was hurt and dealing with stuff, and that team just never really put it all together. And I'm like, man, I just can't hate the Jaguars like I used to, because you have Trevor and Travis Etienne, Tyler Shatley's on there as well. It's like I feel gross rooting against them. So I really kind of wish, especially with how many Tigers Clemson, how many players Clemson has put in the league in the last decade. It's like, oh man, every single week I'm finding myself when I see, even when I'm watching a Titans game and I see a Clemson player on the other team make a play, I'm like, oh, there he goes, let's go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh wait, no, stop it.
Wait. I'm rooting for the Titans. Yeah.
Right.
I don't have that issue, thankfully. But I think it was better. It was better for you guys to beat Jacksonville in that game. I think it was, it gave Trevor the ability to shut it down, get healthy in the offseason,
Probably.
come back, because it wasn't going to go well if they went into the playoffs anyway. They didn't have the type of season that they were hoping to have. So,
No.
but good luck to all these dudes. Hopefully, we get to see them play on Sundays. Hopefully, they're big time contributors to their team. Um, and hopefully we can continue the streak of Clemson players getting Super Bowl rings every year. So
Yep.
let's keep that going.
Absolutely.
But but let's go ahead and transition into our final topic of the night before we turn it over to the comment section and have them take us in all sorts of different directions. So last topic that we'll cover tonight is our segment on all around college football. So it's kind of a quick hitter segment where we just talk about topics around college football, give our quick thoughts about it, and then move on to the next one. So first up, Jordan, I'm sure we were going to talk about this tonight, and that is that Saban article that came out from Chris Lowe of ESPN that literally everyone is talking about right now ad nauseum around the internet, on the big networks. Everybody's talking about it. So Saban basically had an interview with him and basically gave a little bit of insight into the decision-making process and some of the things that caused him to hang it up as the greatest college football coach of all time, which most people believe that he is. So, and some of the things that, and he said this wasn't the reason, but these were contributing factors to him hanging it up. And he talked about kind of how his team reacted to that Michigan loss and how he didn't necessarily like the way that they responded to it. And then in the days in the week following that game, having tons of players come up to him and ask for guaranteed playing time the following season, or they were going to transfer, and then also asking for NIL money to be guaranteed, or they again would transfer, or go explore other options, or whatever the case may be. And those were some of the contributing factors to him hanging it up. Also, obviously, he's 72 years old. He's been in college football forever. Eventually, it had to come to an end. So, what's your quick thoughts on the interview, and more importantly, maybe your thoughts on the reaction that everybody is having about what Nick Saban had to say about his reasons for kind of hanging it up, and then college football in general?
Well, it's there's an elephant in the room, obviously, just based off of the comments that he made and the sort of similarities.
Sounds like somebody I know. I don't know who it is though. I can't remember the guy's name who says that stuff all the time and gets killed for it. But
yeah,
I don't know.
The similarities, and the things that Saban described in that interview, you were like, that's interesting, and sounds like a certain coach that was warning about this kind of stuff several years ago, and got raked over the coals, and called all sorts of names and all sorts of things, and made all sorts of accusations. I don't know, man. But as far as like the content, it really isn't surprising. That's just it's kind of where we are in college football, and this. The things, the rules about NIL and all of that, and the intention about NIL was never supposed to be used as a bargaining chip for your own to keep your own roster and things like that. But it's a symptom and kind of a confirmation that this sport is going to lose coaches because they don't want to deal with this kind of stuff. And it's people are saying, well, man, you're complaining. It's like these players need to have the autonomy to transfer and to get paid. And I'm like, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think yes. I mean, the players, have deserved and always deserve to be compensated, because
Yes.
they're the ones putting their bodies on the line and all that. But there's no guardrails, and there's nothing in place, and there's no structure in place. There's no other there's no other setting in as far as in like employment, or even if you just look at the NFL, there is nothing that is structured the way that college football is right now. Like it's just the wild wild west, and I can just go to the highest bidder, and I don't have to really there's no contracts or anything, and no obligations to stay with the team. I don't have to and there's no buyouts or anything like that. It's just kind of willy-nilly, whatever you want to do, and it's unregulated. Like that's no part of the American economy. No other setting is like that. Mm-hmm. And so you can say, well, oh, these coaches are just mad that they're losing control, and they don't they're not getting free labor anymore. And I'm like, well, no. I mean, I get that sentiment, but I really think it's because there's no guardrails in place, and there's no structure, and that's not a sustainable model. We don't operate like that in any other non-sports related setting. So it just, why would you make it like that here? And so, but yeah, it's just kind of another confirmation that this sport is going to lose coaches, and Nick Saban is a guy that has echoed very similar sentiments that Dabo has been making for a while, and we'll see. I don't expect anybody to apologize to Dabo or realize that, oh, maybe he was right, but
that's
the reality.
And it's frustrating for me as a Clemson fan to see, Dabo's been talking like this for 4, 5, 6 years, whatever the case may be, and warning of some of these things, and kind of foretelling of things that would come, and we have seen those things come to fruition. We've seen the drastic changes in college football, and unfortunately we're in a place right now where there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of moving pieces. How it all shakes out and how it gets figured out, I don't think anybody knows how it's all going to look when the dust settles, if you will. But I do think there's got to be some regulations. There's got to be some reining in of some of this NIL stuff and some of the transfer portal stuff. And, it's just the spirit of the rule was great. I agree that college football players needed to be paid, and they should be able to move when they want to move, and that kind of stuff. But within reason, right? You don't get paid. If a company were to come to you and they were like, hey, we're going to pay you X amount of dollars to do this, you can't just walk away from that without repercussions, right? Like there's going to, whether those be financial or whatever the repercussions are going to be, there will be repercussions from walking away from that contract or whatever the case may be, right? So that's some stuff that we got to get figured out in college football, and what the answers will be, I think are super complicated. There's no easy answer here, but my hope is that it gets reined in at least a little bit, and we don't get so far away from college football, what the core of college football is, and the pageantry and the traditions and stuff like that. I hope we don't get to a point where we're so far removed from that you can't recognize college football. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm not going to watch college football. But my hope is, as a fan that's been a fan of college football for a very long time, that we don't get to a point where, you don't recognize what college football used to be anymore. So we'll see how it all works out. But, Nick Saban didn't say anything that, he's said stuff like this in the past, and he doesn't get killed nearly as much as Dabo Swinney does. When Dabo Swinney comes out and says stuff like this, Dabo Swinney's just that guy that's easy to hate. He's that media target that as soon as he says something even remotely, that sounds like he's, petitioning for some regulations with NIL or whatever, they're like, oh, see, I told you. he don't want anybody getting paid. He don't want this. He don't want that. Blah blah blah
Even
blah.
something
Right.
relatively uncontroversial,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't think we should be I don't think schools should be allowed to tamper with each other's rosters.
yeah.
And then
Right.
and then someone will find something to complain about and
Yeah.
what he said or how he
Yeah.
said it, and
They'll be
just
like, see, he just don't want the players to have any power and be able to
yeah,
go where they want to go. Like that's not what he said. That's not
yeah.
what he said at all. But they twist words and stuff like that. But it's funny that Nick Saban says it, and there's still people out there that are like, he's crazy. What is he talking about? But he gets a lot more support, right? Because of who he is. He's Nick Saban, right? So I agree with some of the sentiments that he put out there. I think it makes a lot of sense. We'll see where college football ends up, because right now, who knows? We're like I said numerous times in the past, we're on this roller coaster. It's already left the station. Where it ends up, we have no idea. But we're on for the ride, and we're going to be there when the dust settles. Still doing this show, still talking about Clemson football and all that stuff.
Totally.
So, it is what it is. I hope it doesn't, go to hell in a handbag or whatever cliche statement you want to make there. But we'll see. Next thing we'll talk about is the early signing period being moved back in December, right? So right now, or I should say, they've moved it back to the Wednesday after the regular season has ended. So we will have the early signing period before the transfer portal opens up. What do you think about this? Do you think that's a good thing for college football? Do you think that will have a positive impact on high school recruiting and maybe those guys getting some more opportunities? We've talked about that in the past. What are your thoughts on that change? Did it change anything at all? Was it just a mute point? Will they still do the June thing? I know they're going to meet in person in June and talk about doing the June signing day as well. Obviously, that won't come into effect this season, but could have ramifications for maybe the 2025-2026 season. Who knows? But what are your thoughts about that small change that they made to make it the Wednesday after the regular season ends?
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps, from just a logistics standpoint, for coaches. Having it later, but before the transfer portal cycle starts, makes things a little bit more streamlined. And I know there were some questions about, oh, well, what about football, the high school football season and all of that. But I think that's a very minor thing. I think ultimately it makes things a lot less clunky and hectic when that time of year rolls around. Just that minor change, because again, it makes things a little bit more streamlined. You're not dealing with guys entering the portal, and you're working on trying to sign your class, and then you got guys entering the portal at the same time, and it makes things, it muddies everything a ton. So moving it earlier makes it a lot simpler, in a time where roster management is just is the most hectic it's literally ever been.
Non-existent.
Anything you can do to kind of make things a lot more common sense, you should do. So
Yeah,
I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I think it certainly helps. It makes it better, a little bit more manageable. But I honestly hope they add one. I hope that June early signing period gets added. I really do. I think
I know Dabo does.
I think it would be great, specifically speaking selfishly for Clemson and the way that they do recruiting and how their stuff lines up. It would be a very easy transition for Clemson to kind of go all in on that June early signing period. So we'll see if what the kind of talks are coming out of that in-person meeting that they have in June about it. My thoughts are that we will probably have something earlier than just the initial pushback to the first Wednesday after the regular season. I would assume. Will it be June? I don't know. We'll find that out hopefully this summer and have a little bit more concrete answers on what signing days are going to look like, and what months they're going to be in, because it will affect high school recruiting. It will affect the high school season. So the sooner we can get those answers, the better off we'll be, and the more time coaching staffs will have to adjust for that next recruiting cycle that obviously is already underway, because we have sophomores coming in this weekend. We just talked about them, so
Yeah.
that class could be affected by that rule change, that could potentially be coming. All right, last thing in all around college football, and then we'll kick it over to the comment section. So as we talk about this last topic, guys, go ahead and get your comments in the comment section, get your questions in, get your thoughts in, and we'll start responding to them as soon as we get done with this one. All right, Jordan, I don't know if you've heard about it, but the NCAA college football game is coming back. And we talked about how much the players are getting paid to opt in, and they're getting the $600, they're getting a free copy of the game. And there was a certain quarterback who may or may not play for the University of Texas that decided to tell everyone that he was not opting into the NCAA college football game. He wanted to focus on becoming the best quarterback that he could be, and his career at Texas. So Arch Manning opts out. The first, I think, at least as I've heard, the first big name opt out of the NCAA college football game. What are your thoughts? Does it matter at all? What do you think of the explanation as to why he did it?
His decision, I understand it. We talked about this when we were talking about what the players would be compensated for opting in. We talked about how that wasn't necessarily proper value for what these players are worth. As far as $600 and is pretty cheap and really not that much in the grand scheme of things.
Right.
So his decision I understood, but the reasoning was really bizarre, and which I don't think. I think it's BS.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I don't think that was the reason that they didn't want, for whatever reason, they didn't want to say the actual reason, which is what I think is I'm worth more than $600 and a free copy of the game. And they just didn't want to come out and say. Here's the thing about the Mannings, and Arch, his career has been very, very meticulously curated. His appearances, his social media, just kind of how his recruitment was really, really kept under wraps and and just really kept everything close to the vest. And that's how him and his family have decided to operate. So I think they just said that as we got to give some reason for why he's not doing it, but we're not going to disclose it. And so he just said, I want to focus something nebulous about focusing on being the best quarterback he can be, like getting $600 and a free copy of the game. All of a sudden, it takes up too much of your signing. You got to sign a form, and all of a sudden that takes too much of your time from throwing dig routes or something. I'm just like, I don't. That doesn't make any sense. So no. I'm using my common sense here in saying that was not the real reason.
No, it certainly was not the real reason. It can't be. That can't be the real reason. I haven't seen these contracts that EA sent out, but I wouldn't assume that they're too terribly long. I wouldn't assume that there's a ton of signatures. I mean, what's it going to take? The universities are vetting these contracts anyway. So, what's it going to take for you to sit down and sign the contract and be done with it, right? You don't have to play the game if you don't want to play it. I don't think it's a distraction in any way. So saying that you just want to focus on becoming the best quarterback, I don't think the game has any impact on you becoming the best quarterback or not becoming the best quarterback that you can be. Like literally zero impact whatsoever. So I agree with you in the sense that the reasoning they gave was just weird. It was bizarre. It was just like, that don't even sound believable.
No.
So maybe a better publicist there or something could have came up with a better reason. What the real reason is, I don't know. Could be what you think. Yeah, I'm worth more than $600. He probably is worth more than $600. I
Especially with
mean,
his last name, yeah.
his last name alone is moves the needle. Regardless of how good he ends up being, that Manning name moves the needle. It just
Yep.
does in the world of football, regardless. So um, I just thought it was an interesting topic to kind of talk about. I knew someone would opt out and it would become like a story. I didn't know it would be Arch Manning. That's pretty funny that it ended up being him. I don't think this will be the last person.
No.
There's going to be somebody else,
Yeah.
and it's kind of one of those things that'll probably snowball a little bit. Now that Arch Manning has done it, somebody else is going to do it, and then so on and so forth. So it'll be interesting to just kind of watch it from afar and see how many people opt out of it, how many big name people opt out of it. Um, you know, we'll see. They say that you're not going to be able to program people into the game, but I believe in the gamers of this world, and I believe they'll figure out a way to do it. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know.
If there,
I don't
yeah,
know.
if there's one thing that
Hey, look,
uh, the gaming community knows how to do
yeah,
is
I don't think.
is the modding community, especially they'll cook something up. They'll figure
That's what
out
I'm saying. Like
they'll figure out some work.
EA is vastly overestimating their ability to prevent people from doing that. Okay,
Yeah.
because there's some guy or girl out there that is probably already you know working it up in their head how they're going to make it happen. So good luck EA preventing people from putting people in the game that opt out. I don't think that's going to happen. Uh, but again, it's a fun thing to talk about. I personally can't wait for the game to come out. I'm obviously going to buy it. I'm obviously going to play it, and hopefully EA don't mess it up. But we've already talked about that in the past. But that'll do it for the planned portion of the show tonight, guys. We are already at the 2 hour mark. I tried to move it along as quickly as we could, but we just had a ton to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
It was hard to get through it. I felt like we kept a good pace going the entire show, but again, here we are already at 2 hours. But let's go ahead and
That's what I get for yapping. Yeah,
that's
we
it.
just it happens.
It is what it is, man. Hey, we're talking Clemson football, and anytime that I can spend 2 hours chopping it up and talking Clemson football is 2 hours well spent, in my opinion. So
100%.
let's turn it over to the comment section. Let's see what you crazies are talking about. What questions you guys want us to cover, and then after that we'll get out of here.
Yeah, man. Oh, and of course, if you want to make sure that your question is read, you can hit the super chat. That is always an option.
Yes.
Let's see
Hit
what you
that
got.
super chat feature, and we'll be sure to get your comment read on the show and responded to. Also, hit that like button, guys. If you haven't already, please hit that like button while you're in here, and then hit that subscribe button as well. Me and Jordan do this show every Thursday, 7 p.m. Year round. So during the season, through the off season, we do it year round. We do a lot more content within the football season, obviously. But this show is a year round show, and we've also started cutting it up into little clips on the YouTube channel. So check those out. Like those videos, comment on those videos if you could. Trying to get a little more traction on the channel. So thank you guys for always showing up and hanging out with us.
Absolutely. John asks on the Arch Manning phrase, is there a rumor that Manning might transfer just internet chit chat? I mean, beats me. I don't know. Things can. I mean, personally, I would be surprised at this point.
Yeah.
I think Arch Manning is the next in line at this point with Malik Murphy transferring to Duke, and Quinn Ewers more than likely this being his last season. I just don't. I think he's the next in line to start. I think he's in a. I mean, in a good situation at Texas. So it's not like they're not taking care of him. So I just, with Steve Sarkisian, and obviously his proven track record with quarterbacks and offenses, it wouldn't really make sense to me for him to transfer this late in the game. Might as well stick it out. But
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd be surprised if Arch Manning transferred. I don't ever see him transferring. That's just, I don't know. I just feel like that's not something the Manning family would be very interested in, having him transfer. But I mean, I guess obviously anything's a possibility. But I guarantee you wouldn't know anything about it until it happened. They keep everything very tight-lipped, very close to the vest. If he was to transfer, no one would know until the Mannings would want you to know about it. But no, I don't think he's transferring. He's going to sit not behind Quinn Ewers this year, and then he'll be QB1 heading into next season. And then we'll see how good he is.
Absolutely. Todd him to ask how good will he be? Yeah, beats me.
I don't know.
He's talented. But haven't hardly seen him at all in real live situations, and he didn't really play the best competition in high school. So
that's a tough name to have as a quarterback.
It is. It's a lot of pressure.
That's like being named LeBron James Jr. I mean, you're going to get opportunities because of your name, but it's tough to live up to that standard.
Yeah, definitely. John asks, is there a chance Walker Parks is out through part of all of the season, or part or all of the season? For sure, Luke won't have a chance to see him taking any scrimmage or live snaps to figure out the O-line starters. I mean, they've been kind of close to the vest as far as his prognosis. Obviously, we know he's out for spring, but beyond that, I would be surprised if he was, out for the entire season. Considering he was injured, several months ago at this point. So I'm not really sure we have enough information to comment on it. But as far as Matt Luke and evaluating the starters, I don't think it'll affect it that much. I think there's kind of I think Walker Parks it's very clear that he needs to play and he needs to start when he's healthy. And Matt Luke had I don't know. I would be surprised if this injury impacted Walker Parks' playing time necessarily, because I think he's just too experienced of a guy at this point, and I think he's one of those guys coming in, he's going to play. But
I don't think it'll affect him at all, in my opinion. And he is doing individual drills during spring, so he's not doing any live work, so he's not going to go against the defensive line or get any sort of live work done, but he is doing individual drills. So I mean, Matt Luke can turn on the tape, he can evaluate Walker Parks from the tape standpoint, and then obviously seeing him in individual drills. So I don't think it affects his ability to still be in the starting roster. I think it's pretty clear that this offensive line is better when Walker Parks is on the field.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that's going to change just because he's a little limited for spring.
That's a great point. Jay asks, who would you think subs in at tight end for run blocking? This is a good question because
that's a really good question.
Yeah. With the departure of Sage Ennis, there's not really a clear, guy to be that kind of inline tight end that helps in the run blocking game and all of that. That's going to be that's going to be something that's going to have to develop, because I think your top two, obviously Jake Brenningstool, his struggles in blocking have been well documented. I think Josh Sapp is a little bit better, but he's still kind of an undersized guy. He's not really a guy that's going to be a a true inline blocker a ton of times. I think he's a capable blocker, but he's not. And he'll definitely be in on some run plays. But as far as a guy you want like attached to the offensive line, I think Banks Pope potentially could be that guy because he's experienced. He's at this point he's been in the program a long time. I don't think Olsen Pat Henry. I think Olsen Pat Henry is closer to Jake Brenningstool and Josh Sepp as far as body type.
Yep.
So he's not going to be attached the whole time really much. I think probably the most suitable beyond Banks Pope is probably Marcus Dixon. I think he's more of the more traditional guy, and also when Christian Bentaker comes in, I think he has the body type to do it. I don't know. He certainly, but he certainly would have to come in and really get along as far as that's concerned. So we'll see. That's something that just from coming out of high school, I think it would be Marcus Dixon was the guy that I think I saw the most of because he's closer to that traditional tight end body type. But yeah, Banks Pope as well. I think those would be my two, but especially Banks Pope because he's played a lot.
Yeah, that'd be my first guess is Banks Pope, and then maybe one of those other guys can develop behind him as far as a blocking tight end, but Brenningstool is definitely not going to do it.
No,
he just don't got the frame for it, man. It's not really his fault. He's more like a receiver playing tight end. He's got that receiver type body. He don't have the mass to get in there and really go head to head with these defensive linemen or these blitzing linebackers or that kind of stuff. He's a matchup nightmare for them when it comes to the passing game and going out for routes. But when it comes to blocking, that tall, kind of lengthy frame does not do him any favors in the blocking.
No, it does not. Let's see. Tig says Arch to Clemson. Yeah, no, that sorry, buddy. No. That ship has sailed a long time ago.
Yeah. We recruited him once upon a time. That didn't happen.
Yeah, but it worked out because I appreciate how they went about his recruitment because they were very honest and upfront with their suitors, and when they was clear, it's like you're not an option we're not really considering you an option anymore. They told them they didn't leave Clemson out to dry. Like when it was like, hey, we like these, we're probably going to go in a different direction. Clemson was like, cool,
yeah, cool. Let's move on.
And they pivoted to Chris Vizina. So that was I have a lot of respect for the Manning family for that because Arch Manning was Clemson was that was the first quarterback that they offered and the guy they were in on, and when it was clear that wasn't going to work out, they were able to pivot really early to end up with Chris Vizina. So I do appreciate how they went about that. John asks, you guys planning your 5K party as far as subscribers? Yeah, we're sitting at 4,900, I think, right now. So we're getting close to it.
We're getting there.
Yeah. So those of you that are listening, whether live, rewatch, and you like the show, share it with your other Clemson people, or even just other college football fans that may like the show. We're continuing to try to grow this channel, and it's really cool to see us getting close to that 5,000 number. So we haven't planned a party.
No,
haven't really talked about it much, but maybe we'll do something special for that. We'll see.
Yeah, if you guys got any ideas, go ahead and put it in the comment section of this video once we hop off of here, and maybe we'll think about doing something special for when we get to 5K. But we'll see.
ask orange or white, who you got in the spring game? Well, we don't know the teams yet, so
I guarantee Clemson will win
yes,
on
that's
April 6th. Clemson will win. Guarantee.
that might be a hot take, but I agree
y'all
with
can. I guarantee it's a hot take. But I'm telling you, go ahead and put your money in Vegas. Bet the house. Clemson will win on April 6th. Guaranteed. No doubt about it. 100%.
Let's see. Jay asks, has Matt Luke done any press since being hired? Would love to hear his thoughts on the offensive line. You know, he's been very, very limited as far as media availability, but, you know, I think, you know, early on, you know, he kind of, especially in his introductory, I think he passed the test as far as kind of what he's looking to bring to this group. And so, you know, I think he very much fits what he very much fits what Clemson is about. And like we said, we feel really, really good about the hire. And but we'll kind of see kind of how once we get, you know, more into spring, we'll get opportunities to hear from him on specific guys. But yeah. We'll kind of see how it goes out.
I think he did a press conference leading up to the Gator Bowl. I believe he did one, but again, he didn't have a lot of information about the offensive line at that point. So I think if you're looking for his thoughts on specific players and maybe where they're at, it's probably coming at some point in time. He'll be available to the media during spring, and that'll probably be where you could get a little bit of more information on how he feels about the guys he has in that group.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the way they talk about him, you know, is very encouraging.
Yes, very. Michael asks, question about spring game parking. Is it first come, first serve? Never been to a spring game. Looking to go this year. Well, assuming that it continues to be open to the public and free, yeah, I believe parking is. They do. I think they have a designated parking lot. I don't remember which one they typically do. But yeah, it's first come. It's first come, first serve. I have to do more research on what parking lot they do, but yeah.
Everything's. I've been to a couple spring games. Everything's free.
Yeah,
you don't have to pay for parking. Obviously, you don't have to pay to get into the stadium or anything like that. You're going to spend money because, I mean,
yeah,
walking through Tiger Town and getting T-shirts and hats and, you know, all sorts of stuff.
It's tough to resist, man.
Yeah, sure. That you're going to buy just because it's like, oh, I'm here. I want that, right? So, but you don't have to spend any money to go to the spring game. Completely free. Yeah, so.
David Larry asks, any speculation on potential transfers after the spring window? I don't typically like to speculate on guys because I don't get, you know, information usually. I usually don't know beforehand when somebody's going to, you know, hit that portal. I definitely, you know, it's probably it's inevitable. I think Clemson will have, you know, at least a couple departures.
Yeah.
But who those are going to be is your guess is as good as mine, because some guys that I think of and I'm like, oh man, this guy's, there's no way this guy doesn't transfer. There have been guys that I felt that way about that didn't hit the portal, and then there were some guys where I was like, I'd be kind of surprised if he transferred. He's got a really good thing going, and then they hit the portal. So you never know with these types of things. So I don't really like to speculate because I don't want to give you guys like information or you know, bad information or an impression that a guy is leaving and then they're not, because I don't feel good about doing that either. So
yeah, it's hard to know.
It's really hard to know because these things can change by the day too.
Yeah.
So it's
We'll
you might hear one day, oh, this guy's leaning towards transferring, and then tomorrow he's like, oh, you know what, I'm happy where I'm gonna stay where I am, or vice versa. It's like I'm gonna stick it out, and then they realize I don't really want it. I think I'm gonna go look somewhere else, and that's so it's tough.
It goes both ways, but there'll probably be a couple. I mean, that's just kind of the nature of college football now. You're gonna probably lose a couple guys post spring, specifically because they're gonna have a real good understanding of where they sit in the depth chart, and if they feel like that they can go get playing time elsewhere, they're gonna transfer. That's just kind of the nature of college football now. So. But again, like you mentioned, like we almost lost Maffa a couple seasons ago, so to the transfer portal. Yeah. Luckily, that didn't happen.
There are a couple other players on this team that that we very easily could have lost to the transfer portal. That stayed with. And if I had told you that then when it was there was some smoke going on. And then they ended up staying. Then it's like, there's egg on my face, and
there you go. Yeah,
I don't like doing that.
No.
Todd asked, "What is the current scholarship count?" I believe we were at 84.
Either 84 or 85. We're either dead on or one under, I think.
Yeah.
But right around that 85 number. We're not over. I know we're definitely
not over.
So but
yeah.
I'm not sure if we're one under or we're right on the money at 85.
I'll have to go look at that because I've heard different things because there's a couple of guys that are one guy in particular whose scholarship is kind of questionable, and then but I believe it's 84. I think we're at 84 or right at the number.
Yeah.
But so essentially Clemson is full right now.
Yeah, we're locked up. Unless somebody leaves, they're not going to the transfer portal for anybody right now.
Right.
So I don't know if that's why you're asking for a scholarship count. I'm just throwing that out there.
Jay asks, are we benefiting from being mediocre these last few seasons? I think teams like Bama, Michigan would be calling some of our players if we were still somewhat elite. No, we're not. I get what you're saying, but Clemson's players have been called. Quite a few of them, actually.
One of them left, actually.
Yeah. No, Clemson players. Clemson has not been immune to the whole tampering thing. I think they've done a better job at managing it and handling it than most. But Clemson's roster has most definitely been tampered with, not just this offseason, but previous off seasons.
Every single year.
And some of the players that you might think of, potentially having been tampered with, you're probably. You probably guessed right. I'm not gonna go into specific players or names, but you can probably guess at some of them. It's not. Clemson has not been immune to that. Teams have not shied away from Clemson because they've underperformed, because Clemson has very, very good players that would be very, very good for a lot of top teams, when teams, especially nowadays, with this current landscape, if you can, some of these teams are really opportunistic. If they smell blood in the water, they're going to try to capitalize. Oh, Clemson's, there's water leaking. There's a hole. The ship is starting to fill up a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're kind of offering. They're trying to offer these players a lifeline or whatever. And kind of take advantage of that. And so,
and that's where That
From a roster management and retainment standpoint, no, Clemson being down has not helped them keep their players.
I think
It's made it more difficult and made it more likely for players to be contacted. Actually,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's what I think as well, and I think that's what Clemson does really well. Everybody talks about Dabo Swinney and the NIL and all that kind of stuff and the transfer portal, but what Clemson does really well is retain its players and recruit its own roster well. Because that's a thing in college football every single season that you have to do now is when when the season ends, you got to start recruiting your own roster again. It's no longer just high school recruiting or looking into the portal. You got to start with your own locker room, and Clemson does a really good job of really focusing the NIL money that they do have on the guys that are in the locker room and keeping those guys happy and keeping those guys from looking elsewhere. And that's kind of the way that Clemson uses, I think, majority of their NIL budget is to retain their roster, which is really smart, and it's worked out pretty well for Clemson. We don't get hit nearly as hard via the transfer portal as a lot of these schools, and I think it's because of some of the stuff that they do internally, whether it be the NIL deals or just whatever they do internally to kind of get the buy-in from their roster.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of it is Clemson has, they more than some other schools have emphasized on recruiting kids that aren't going to be swayed as much by that. And I think especially with this this young group of guys, the true freshmen and from last year and the soft like the 2023 2024 class, they feel really really good about the type of kids they've got, not just from a talent perspective, but just from a character standpoint. And they really believe that, and they came to Clemson, believing that we're going to be the ones to get Clemson back to the mountaintop. And so I think you're seeing that it's just a lot of guys with a lot of maturity and leadership. And I think it's kind of bled over to the rest of the roster, even the older guys. I think Barrett Carter said something really really good during one of his interviews. He said, I think he was talking about, I believe he was talking about Khalil Barnes. And he just said, leadership has no age. And you just kind of, it might have been Khalil Barnes or Sammy, I don't remember who he was referring to. But you just could, these young guys, these underclassmen, kind of have an infectious quality about them that has kind of bled over to the rest of even the older guys, the rest of the roster.
Yep.
And so I think that helps. I think there's a true sense of camaraderie and a bond with this team, and I think that's kind of kept helped keep the roster together as well, and not just the NIL assurances that they're receiving as well. So
right,
I think Clemson has a unique kind of system set up right now.
They do, and one of the other, I think, undervalued or not undervalued, under talked about parts of that is the whole Paul journey that they have, where these football players are. I mean, Clemson does a really good job of setting these guys up for life after football, which is what most of these dudes are facing, at year 4, year 5. Like they're not going to the NFL, majority of them, right? Some of them will, and that's great, and they go get paid and all that sort of stuff. But that the Paul journey and like all the micro internships and all the FaceTime they get with these big companies and these opportunities in the summertime and stuff like that to go do these things. I think that's an underrated thing as well that Clemson does a really good job with, because that resonates with those kids' parents as well, right? They see that and they're like, well, yeah, maybe you could go play there this season and get more playing time, but what about all this other stuff that Clemson also offers, and you still get a shot to get on the field, right? So, football is not the only deciding factor, I think, for some of these we live in a day and age in college football where, everybody attributes every college football athlete to they're just chasing money. Well, not every college football athlete out there is just chasing money.
Right.
Yeah, do they want the opportunity to be able to get some NIL money? Yes, but that's not the most important thing to all of these guys. Some of them it is, but not all of them. And Clemson resonates with the players that's not the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So and I think that's a big reason why Clemson has not been decimated, especially when it comes to like their starters.
Yeah.
They haven't lost the same lost guys at the same rate as some of these other schools. They're not immune to it, but I think I think the collection of talent and people on the roster are the right. You have the right, like these guys are made of the right stuff, and so to use like a Daboism. So
there you go. Yeah.
I think this group is definitely really close, and that definitely helps when you're trying to retain a roster. We spent a lot of time on that question, but it was a good one. See, is there anything else? We're hitting the 2.5 hour mark.
Coming right up against it.
Yep. I don't really see anything else, so
all right.
I think think we can go ahead and call it a night.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, we got 26 people in the live chat right now. I'll mention it again. If you have not hit that like button, go ahead and hit that like button for us. Help us out. Also, that subscribe button. Come hang out with us every Thursday. We do this show every Thursday, 7 p.m. For the duration. Every single week we're here. We don't miss very many, if at all any. So glad you guys showed up tonight. Glad you guys stuck with us through 2.5 hours of content. If you're watching this in the rewatch, don't forget we will put the timestamps in the description of the video, and we'll probably cut up a few of these into smaller videos as well and post them to the channel. Again, always amazed by the amount of people that show up and hang out with me and Jordan and do these shows, and it is greatly appreciated. Shout out to all the folks that were kind enough to hit that super chat for us, and that is Will, our resident Notre Dame fan. Shout out to Will.
My guy.
Shout out to our man Brady here for hitting that super chat for us as well. And then Zachariah, you three, thank you guys so much for hitting that super chat, supporting the show. It truly is greatly appreciated by myself and Jordan. Jordan, go ahead and send the people off.
Yeah, guys. Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Just another great show. We're full into spring practice now, so we're really getting into the meat of the off season, and lots of recruiting stuff to talk about as well. So you guys just keep showing up, and we'll keep showing up and chopping it up with you guys and talking about what's going on in the Clemson world. So hit that like button if you haven't already. Just one more time, and share this show. Like I said earlier, with fellow Clemson fans, college football fans, we're welcome of anybody that wants to tune in. And those of you guys on the rewatch squad, just a reminder, timestamps in the description. If you want to hear us talk about something that you may have missed. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next Thursday.
Until next time, guys, I'm Tiger Paul Craven. He's Jordan Bowman. Go Tigers.
Later, y'all.